here today for many reasons, including the chance to get to speak to our amazing panelists, who you'll meet in just a moment, but also because I am going to share some of our brand new research that we conducted with Impact on how consumers around the world are engaging with and making purchase decisions from creator content. We've got 30 minutes before lunch. We've got a ton to get through, so I wanted to jump right in and do a round of introductions. Brianna, why don't we start with you?
Definitely. So I'm Brianna Doe, founder and CEO of Verbatim. We're an influencer marketing agency. Our clients are typically B2B SaaS and D2C e-com, and then I also create content on LinkedIn.
I'm Lacie Thompson. I've founded LT Partners, which was acquired by Engen 2 years ago. We're a digital marketing agency with a hyper-focus in affiliate, creator, and content.
And I am Brittny Kindred. I have the pleasure of overseeing our affiliate and influencer marketing teams at the Home Depot.
So this session, of course, is on the rise of the performance creator and the future of marketing partnerships. And the overarching theme from the research that we conducted with Impact showed that there is more that unites than divides consumers around the world when it comes with how they're engaging with and making purchase decisions from creator, influencer, or KOL content. Now, that is really great news for brands and creators as they're looking to localize global strategies or expand internationally. And it also has a ton of implications for brands and creators as they're looking to scale their content and their businesses, optimize budgets, especially in this time of some economic volatility and as the creator economy is professionalizing, all of which, of course, is making performance even more important than ever. So the first trend I wanted to look at from the research, if I can see it here, is on content formats. And what we found was that people around the world like many types of creator content, whether that is long-form video, audio, text, the list goes on, but the number one most preferred type of creator content in every country was short-form video. That's probably not going to come as a surprise to anybody. Basically, every social platform is now a short-form video platform. But Brianna, as primarily a text-based creator on LinkedIn, what does this data say to you about your content and your business, and how have you been navigating the shift toward short video?
Yeah, it's unfortunate for me, I'll be honest. For context, like you mentioned, I primarily create text-based content. It's how I started on LinkedIn. I've maybe posted 2 videos in the past 4 years, but I am launching a video podcast next month, actually, and probably a second one next year. And I think, you know, as somebody who is primarily text-based and who loves to write, and it's just always been my medium, it can be discouraging at first, but I also think it's exciting. As a marketer and as a creator, there's so many different opportunities to engage with both your existing audience and any new audiences. And so while it's obviously a big shift, right? The way you produce the content, the way you deliver it, the way you synthesize your thoughts is just entirely different. I think it's also a really cool way to kind of expand my own reach, both as a business owner in this case, and as a creator who partners with brands.
And so you said you've posted 2 videos on LinkedIn, which of course has a short form video feed. Were those sponsored videos? Have brands been requesting that you create short videos for them?
Yeah, they were sponsored. I would not have done it otherwise, I'll be honest. They were sponsored. They wanted to test it out with me, see how it connects with my audience. I think it makes sense too, right? We just connect with video more than just a written post. And I'm seeing more and more brands ask for it, both clients and brands that I partner with as well. They want to start testing it out. They want to incorporate it into any influencer strategy they're already setting into place.
Absolutely. And Lacie, you work with many different brands, and when you look at this data, does what you see here in terms of consumer content preferences align with how you're advising brands to approach their creator strategy in terms of content formats, or is it something different or perhaps dependent on the brand that you're working with?
I think it aligns to some degree. I think we definitely want to help guide our partners as to what will resonate more with a broad audience, but it also, you know, in tandem, you have to balance that out with allowing the creator to really be authentic. And, you know, if the audience likes the content as copy, as text in a post, it may not land as well if all of a sudden there's a short form video thrown in, because they're not used to that and it might not feel authentic to them. And so it's a balance of like helping to educate and guide, but also giving the creators the authority to make the right decision for what's right for their audience, because they know that better than the brand does. And so you don't want to like fully dictate. I think where we think about being more controlling is like what we do with that content afterwards. So the organic content is where we want it to be super, super authentic. And then if we're going to take that and distribute it through other paid media channels or put it on a website or something like that, we might want to have a little bit more control over how we like remix it and slice and dice it. So that's kind of how we think about it.
And how does that resonate with you, Brittny? Because I mean, one of the things that short form video has done is that it has really increased the number of creators. And we have TikTok to thank for a lot of that. And while that is great for brands because you now have so many choices in terms of who to work with, but it can be harder than ever to find the right partners, which can cause brand safety concerns or worries about, you know, how they're going to create that content and maybe not want to give up some creative control. So at the Home Depot, how are you identifying the creators that you work with? What kind of criteria are you looking for?
Luckily, I have a very social media savvy team who is constantly in all the algorithms finding creators, but also we have a couple other things set up. So we have an inbound pitch form so creators can reach out to us and let us know what they're working on, what projects they need help on, what big plans they have, so we can kind of start vetting through those to see what matches up with our content calendar. And then beyond that, we're really just like making sure that we give them the brand safety that we need, make sure that they're viewing the content. We have a lot of social listening tools, so if you're a creator out there, make sure you're tagging the brands that you want to work with so they can see the content you're creating, and it makes it a little bit of an easier sell to leadership of why we should be working with a certain creator, how their audience is resonating with them, even when we're not sponsoring them. Those are like the metrics that we really look at to make sure we're identifying the right creator to invest into.
Brianna, I wanted to turn that question around to you because we spent a lot of time talking about making sure that the brand is adequately vetting creators and partnering with the right creators because that can lead to brand safety concerns. But you're a brand in your own right, right? And so there must be a process in which you are vetting the brands that you work with and selecting the products that you choose to promote. So can you tell us a little bit about that as well? How are you approaching that process?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a lot of friends who also create content, and specifically in like the B2B sector, they're a lot less likely to accept a brand deal if they're not already using the product or the platform. For me, there are so many products and platforms that I'm not familiar with, and so I'm open to brands that I've never used before. But one thing that's a non-negotiable is being able to utilize the product or service for differing amounts of time, but at least like 30 days before I actually sign on for a brand deal. And having like open communication with the team or the brand to make sure that it's a good fit. I'd also say I look for companies that are open to experimentation together. To your point and to Lacie's point, maybe video will land with my audience, maybe it won't. Like, are we open to testing this together? Can we kind of define success together if you haven't already as the brand? So knowing that they're open-minded and looking for more than just a one-off post, but looking to build something longer term, not just with me, but with my audience in general is really crucial as well.
Great. So the second trend that we are going to talk about is about creative types. And what the research that we conducted found was that humorous and real-life creator content really resonates across borders. And so these are some of the most popular types of content for consumers in every country that was included in this survey. There is, of course, a ton of overlap between creative types, so funny content can also be educational and vice versa, but overall, this is where we saw people most engage with creator content. So, Brianna, one trend that we've been watching recently is that creators have been shifting towards more predictable content with a recognizable or repeatable format or creative type. So maybe using some of these words that you see here on the slide, how would you characterize your content? And the second part of that question is, how important is it for a creator to have a recognizable niche or creative type?
Yeah, so looking at these, I'm definitely not funny online. I would say it's a hybrid between authentic and storytelling. It differs between sometimes being more educational, sometimes being more inspirational. One thing that I've always kept in mind with my content is it's not going to be tactical. It's not going to be a listicle that says, you know, here are 5 things to do to get better at your job.
There's a lot of people on LinkedIn who do
There's
that.
a lot of people like that, and I don't really need to fill that space. You know, I went into it with the same objective that I have now, 4 years later, which is to just spark conversation and spark dialogue. I really like having my perspective challenged and challenging others, and so I think that's the thread that's woven all of my content together, regardless of the topic. And so with that in mind, to your second point, I think it's important to a great extent to let people know what it is that they're going to be getting from you, and that's where the repeatability or the repetition or the predictability comes in. Whether it's a predictable format or predictable types of content, if you're constantly posting, let's say, really serious, really educational content, then you just shift to humorous for a week or so, it can be jarring. Doesn't mean your audience won't like it, but there's going to be a bit of a lag there. And so I think regardless of your niche or your medium, people should know what they're getting from you at some point.
So I love that you brought up this idea of shifting towards a different creative type or a different type of content, because one of the reasons that creators can be such powerful partners for brands is that they can take more risks with creative and messaging. They can say things that brands cannot. And so that can also be really scary for brands when they're working with creators. Lacie, I wanted to ask you, how do you balance giving advice to brands when they're thinking about creative freedom versus staying true to brand guidelines? I know you started to talk a little bit about this, but you also gave a great example about a company called Moon Juice that turned a very tricky situation into a win. So I was hoping you could talk about that as well.
Yeah, there's probably a few examples, but I mean, in general, I think it's good to start with getting the right decision makers in the room across the organization, because everybody tends to have an opinion about what creators should be able to say about a brand and not. And so you really have to get alignment and buy-in from all of those decision makers, all of the people that are internally crawling around on TikTok and sending you videos what is this? So just getting that baseline set with the guidance that you should try to control as little as you are comfortable controlling. I think that's the best guidance to provide before determining what those barometers need to be.
And how difficult is that conversation? I mean, if you're looking for executive buy-in, for example, how are you navigating that? Because I know one of the challenges for many years has been that senior leadership in particular at many brands either dismissed creator content or were too afraid of it or didn't think it worked. Has that changed?
I think that there's a lot of information now. So we handle a lot of difficult conversations, it's typically with data. There's a gal on our team who is a creator herself, and she actually posted on LinkedIn a few weeks ago about how she was working with a brand who gave her a ton of structure, told her exactly what they wanted her to post and how they wanted her to post it. And she pushed back, but said, I'll go ahead and create these videos for you. She did 3 videos, short form videos. They all got about 20,000 views. And then she went back to them and said, hey, I feel like if I could create the video how I want to, it would actually perform a lot better. And I'm willing to do it without you paying me a flat fee. But she designed these tiers that said, if I get 0 to X views, this is what you would pay me. And they agreed with it. So she sort of pitched them her own idea, and it ended up getting 3 million views. So I think that when we can bring those examples and information to the table, it helps people understand that our recommendations show up as evidence. We have the receipts to prove that what we're suggesting is the right path forward. But sometimes companies are not always super comfortable with letting their guard down in the beginning. I just spoke with a brand where they sell apparel and golf clubs and balls and everything. And they wanted to make sure that every creator that they worked with exclusively had their products on them from head to toe, everything. And they learned through that experience that was too restrictive. It wasn't the right path forward. So it's a lot of trial and error in our experience.
I love that you brought up all of that data and receipts and proof of concept, because one of the things that we keep talking about too is that creators as well as brands need to be more business minded and more serious in their creator and influencer marketing strategies. as the space is professionalizing. We didn't talk about Moon Juice, but we'll come back to that because
Okay.
I want to go to Brittny first and talk a little bit more about Home Depot, because I'm wondering if there is a through line in the creative of the creators that you're currently working with.
Yeah, so our core group initially started with like DIY home improvement, people you would expect to work at the Home Depot, but as we grow and as we got more leadership buy-in, we're inching into other niches, other like lifestyle verticals as well, with the understanding that like the overall concept and message is that the Home Depot is your helpful ally for whatever project you're tackling. It doesn't matter if you're a professional or if this is your first project, you're a crafter. Like, we want to make sure that everyone feels like they're represented and that they're seen in the content. So we are working with a variety of creators, and the underline is like they come to the Home Depot because they have that brand loyalty and that trust, and they trust us to help them with their projects. So we're really trying to diversify, get out of the like verticals that you would expect us to be in, but also still keep that true sense of like DIY creators. Like, we need to have a presence there at all times, but as we inch into other verticals, figure out what makes sense, what are we testing into, and that's the risk that we're taking there of like trying to get leadership to understand why a lifestyle influencer needs to go to the Home Depot, but everyone needs to decorate at the very least.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to go back to Moon Juice because I think it's such a great example, if you don't mind sharing.
No, I don't mind sharing. When we were speaking earlier, I was just giving an example of sometimes, creators don't always love your products at first, even though everybody wants them to. So sometimes when you come against like concerns that they have or things like that, it's really helpful to encourage them to be creative. And so with Moon Juice, they have a product called Magnesium. It's something that you drink before you go to sleep. And one of the creators that we were working with did not like the taste of it at all. And she didn't feel comfortable, obviously, promoting it because she didn't genuinely like it and didn't want to share it with her audience. So we sort of just encouraged her to get creative, and she ended up coming up with a recipe with it that she really loved that included like a cherry juice that balanced with whatever it was in the product that wasn't her favorite thing. And it really blew up and went viral. And so she called it like the Sleepy Girl cocktail.
Mocktail, yeah.
Yeah, it really took off. And so sometimes you can have a difficult situation that you can turn into something that can really win.
I see you nodding. Does that resonate with you? Do you have any examples of, when you've maybe had more of a challenging situation with a brand and have made it into a performing campaign that you can share?
I didn't realize I was nodding so intensely. Yeah, no, I have had situations like that, but I think it goes back to what you mentioned earlier about, brands needing to let go of control as much as they're able to, whether that's, coming from internal pressure or elsewhere. Obviously, there are goals and metrics that we're all trying to hit as marketers and as brands, but I've had similar situations, I won't name names, where I didn't love the product. For a situation where it happened, we ended up just not partnering together because there really wasn't flexibility in how we could, approach that partnership. With the second opportunity, we were able to come to more of a creative approach for it. And I think that's important. I think it goes back to that video at the beginning about negative reviews. I'm also one of those consumers who looks for the negative reviews first. I think it's honest. I think it's authentic, it's more realistic, and so leaning into that as a brand, I think, is crucial.
And that's a great segue into our third trend from the research, which is about the path to purchase. And as we heard in some of the previous sessions today, it's not always linear and it's not always immediate, even when people are discovering products from creator content. And so one of the things that the survey showed was that people are, interested in buying from a creator recommendation regardless of if there are negative reviews, and sometimes, in fact, it can encourage them to buy from those creators because they feel that creator is being honest in terms of how they're reviewing the products. Another thing that we found is that people really do trust creator recommendations, but they want to independently validate them, whether that is by going on brand websites, talking to friends or family, or waiting to see if another creator mentions the product. And I think the most interesting finding in terms of the path to purchase from the survey is what you can see here on this slide, which is that there isn't really any magic number to how many times people have to see a creator recommend a product before they make a purchase. There was a lot of people, most people in fact, who said that it really depends on the product. But if you were to average out all of these responses, people do need to see a creator promote a product 3 to 4 times before they click buy. And what that says to me is that there is a lot of value in long-term relationships, which is a conversation that we've been having for quite some time. They're likely to be more effective as they allow creators to integrate products into their content and allow for more frequent exposure. Brittny, I wanted to start with you because when we were talking earlier for this panel, you agreed that there's a lot of value in long-term partnerships, but also that there will always be one-offs, and I also agree with you on that. And then you said that Home Depot tends to move creators who perform well on those shorter-term campaigns into longer-term partnerships. So when you're thinking about making that decision, what criteria are you looking for? How do you define success in those situations?
Yeah, so no matter the creator size, we're really looking at like audience engagement and audience retention. So engagement rate, metrics like that, like shares, likes, follows, just the audience intent. And then from there, there's a lot of benefits of having a long-term partnership with a creator. So once they are performing and their audience is really engaging and they're seeing the Home Depot, we're also trying to build that stickiness with our audience, so it's not a one-off. They're showing that they consistently come to our brand, they love our brand, they're loyal. Makes it easier for them to believe our reasons to believe and convey those to their audience as well. So it's like a mutually beneficial relationship where their audience is believing them, and then we are also being able to sprinkle in more pieces of content, more mentions, more new things, like test out ways because they're kind of invested in our brand as well. And our values are starting to align a little bit easier because we've been working together for so long.
Yeah, I love that idea that it's mutually beneficial. I mean, for the creator too, it's more sustainable, it's more predictable. I mean, one of the things that makes being a creator so hard is that income can be incredibly volatile. You don't necessarily know where your next paycheck is coming from. So having a long-term partnership provides that predictability for creators, can make them more invested in the product, and ultimately can make a better performing campaign. Brianna, I wanted to come to you because as we've seen all the volatility in the economy, what I've heard anecdotally from brands is that they're starting to shift away from long-term relationships despite knowing all the benefits of them toward more shorter-term, more sales-driven, sometimes more ad hoc campaigns. Have you seen a shift in inbounds or perhaps in the kinds of guidelines that brands are giving to you when you're working with them?
So it's interesting, with the B2B brands that I partner with, I am still seeing longer term partnership requests. And by that I mean 3 to 6 months. I typically prefer to start with 3 months and kind of feel it out together. With B2C brands that I partner with, I am seeing more of the shorter term requests.
Do you think that's because B2B has a longer purchasing life cycle? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with that. You can't post once about a SaaS product and expect people to convert. It's just you're speaking to a different pain point, obviously, we all know that here. So longer term partnerships for B2B, but with B2C, I also think because my main channel is LinkedIn, it's more of an experiment, right? B2C is just kind of starting to get into LinkedIn, and so they're less willing to
I think there's a
commit to
huge opportunity for it, though.
Oh, there's a huge opportunity. I think it's such an untapped or underutilized resource. And so I think it's cool when I see B2C brands leveraging it, but there just aren't as many. So anecdotally, yeah, I'm still seeing longer term, but I'm seeing less longer term requests come through, which is fine. As a creator, I don't necessarily want to look like a billboard, if I'm being blunt. So it's okay if I'm getting 3 to 4 for the quarter or whatever the case may be, but they're higher ticket, higher value, longer term.
What about in terms of the guidelines or demands? Have you seen an increase in having to show tangible business results from these campaigns?
Kind of depends, which I know is like the classic marketer answer. It's hit or miss, or 50-50 really. It depends on their goals. So what I'm seeing a lot of are with the longer term partnership requests, we're not just doing sponsored posts, we're doing like co-hosted webinars or co-created lead magnet. And so obviously the metrics that we're tracking for each deliverable or asset is going to be different. They are still looking for results, but the results are just going to vary based on what it is. For the shorter, and also with those actually, they're looking not just for the content itself, but they want the rights to repurpose it, to put ad spend behind it and things like that. So I'm seeing more holistic marketing strategies, which I think is actually really exciting.
So I want to talk a little bit about repurposing and exclusivity because Brittny and Lacie and I had a really great conversation about that as well earlier. But I wanted to come to you first, Lacie, and talk a little bit about how you would advise brands in terms of how to balance sort of the more upper funnel awareness building activities that they do with creators with this demand for more sales-driven campaigns. What's the right balance there if there is one?
I think that it, again, comes down to like the data and understanding how your influencers or creators are interacting with your consumer journey. And for every brand, it varies. I think that's why a lot of the unsure depends on interest is like so large on this graph, is that, you know, my guidance would be different for like a pet food company that we work with versus a retail brand that sells jeans. Like, it's just a different consideration set. And so I think that we definitely want to guide toward that like longer term planning. I think we're all sort of aligned that like that's more mutually beneficial for everybody. But you also have to be on top of the trends that are happening and be ready to be agile. So New Engen actually puts out like a weekly TikTok trends report so that you know, our team uses it to understand like where we can go and capitalize on a moment in time, which I think makes a lot of sense for a short-term opportunity. But then again, it depends sort of what your goals are. And so if you want to leverage the creator content through UGC, through paid media, through retail media spend or the trade desk spend, like a shorter term campaign is fine for that. So it depends what the goals are. And then the measurement piece of it is super important because creator content is just not as clickable as some other types of partnerships. And so if you're only using a click-based attribution measurement philosophy, especially if it's last click, which the affiliate channel typically is, you aren't going to believe that it works most of the time. There are some cases where that is not true, but a lot of the time, it's not going to look as good as other types of partnerships. And so it's about like peeling back the layers and understanding what does success look like and what are the other KPIs that you're going to bring into the conversation to prove the value of what's happening.
I wanted to talk just really quickly about exclusivity before we go to our key takeaways because we've just got a couple of minutes left. Brittny, I wanted to come to you because as you're moving from these shorter term campaigns into longer term relationships, I think this idea of exclusivity becomes even more important and top of mind. You're spending more money, you're spending more resources with a creator. You want to make sure that they're not working with a competitor, for example. So how have you started working exclusivity into your deals and contracts, and how do you use the rights to creator content then to repurpose potentially for other owned channels?
Yeah, exclusivity is very, very tricky. I think that's partially the reason why we're interested in longer term partnerships, because if you're consistently working with us within the contract, you're not supposed to be working with our competitors, or major competitors. We are obviously contracting them for deliverables, so they're reaching their audience, but also bringing a lot of that content in-house to repurpose because we know it performs better than some of the creative that's produced in-house. So we're leveraging it across our website, we're using in paid ads like they all mentioned. Like, we are making sure we get the most value out of it, and that's how we're able to like compensate the creator appropriately to have that exclusivity built in, because they're still making their dollar, and we're also being able to repurpose wherever we see fit within the contracts legally. So I think that's one of the reasons why like exclusivity is always going to be a challenge. They're always going to work with a variety of brands because that's how consumers shop, but we just have to make sure that they truly are connected to our brand and really believe what they're saying, and that's why we would go into a long-term partnership.
I think that is a perfect segue into our final key takeaways. I wanted to come to each of you and have you give the audience one piece of advice in terms of how to keep a performance mindset when it comes to influencer marketing or creator marketing strategies. And Brianna, I'll come to you first.
Sure. So this is kind of a two-parter, but for marketers or brands, my piece of advice would be to remember that the creators you're working with are not just an ad platform. Like, you have a lot more flexibility in how you partner with them, how you define success, the ways in which you approach the partnerships that you're building. And I think that's really exciting. Like, we're not limited by ad specifications or ad rules anymore when you're working with creators. So leaning into that, I think, is crucial. And for creators, treat the marketer or the brand like your customer in that sense. Like, what drives them, what motivates them, what are their pain points and challenges. That's how you're going to land the partnerships where you can focus more on performance and focus more on driving the results that you're both looking for, and that's what makes it mutually beneficial.
Lacie?
I'm going to sort of piggyback on what I was just talking about with data and understanding how to define performance when it comes to influencers, which generally are more top of funnel. We typically see influencers drive, over 80, 90% new traffic for brands. So that means that they are introducing their audience to new people. And I think that you have to be very thoughtful about how you compensate your partners. Impact's technology does have a lot of really robust capabilities as far as crediting logic goes. And I always advise everyone to think beyond the typical structure of a last click crediting logic so that you're really rewarding the partners that are doing the work to get your brand in front of new audiences. And I think when you do that the right way and they actually receive credit and earn a compensation for what they've done, they see better results on their end, and they're more of an evangelist for your brand because of it as well.
I will second that. I just wrote 2 reports that speak to this. One of them is on creator compensation and how not compensating correctly or adequately can lead to misaligned expectations and disappointing outcomes. And the second report, which is coming out next week, in fact, is on influencer measurement and how you can't just rely on last click attribution to measure the full impact of influencer marketing. So stay tuned for those as well. Sorry for the shameless plug here,
Love
but
it.
I thought it worked. Brittny?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, definitely think of influencer marketing as full funnel. Like, yes, we are top of funnel most of the time, but there are other call to actions that we can leverage, especially within paid media, and that helps build out that full funnel and present out to leadership of like the true value of influencer marketing beyond just the impressions. We're also looking at engagement rate. We're also looking at sentiment for the comments. We're also looking at the paid performance with affiliate links. And if it's on our CTAs where we're putting it on the brain handle, we have a lot more attribution, a lot more measurement we can pull through there too. So all of those pieces together really showcase the value of why we should continue doing influencer marketing.